Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday morning live stream. Daylight savings officially hit down here in Melbourne today, and it's no longer really morning, but I'm still doing the Sunday live stream, and thank you for joining. So feel free to let me know where you're from, what you've been up to. In this live stream, I kind of just want to do a little bit of an update on both the channel and just things I've been up to recently. And it's been a whole 6 months since hitting 20,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which was around mid-March when all this sort of stuff started, and now we've hit 25,000 subscribers on the channel, and that's amazing to me. The fact that it's been 6 months since I did a 20,000 subscriber update video, and the feedback and the experience, especially having had more time to create videos, has been really good. It's been very fulfilling, engaging more with you guys, putting out more content, doing weekly videos for the last 2 months, which is, it's harder than it seems. I had never really experienced making content that often, and it can be challenging, especially when we are still locked down here in Melbourne. It's very hard to go out and do anything in terms of filming outside, going out and shooting street. There was that one opportunity where I got to do the foggy winter photo vlog with Phil, which was amazing. There was that couple of weeks where they eased back restrictions. Then the second wave hit. Now we're in a stage 4 lockdown. And yeah, I'm really itching to get out and take more photos outside of the limitations that we're currently under. So looks like we're streaming all right. We've got a few viewers here, and I'm just making sure I can see the chat. So thanks for watching if you're here live. I've got a few things that I wanted to go through. So yeah, it has been an interesting year. It has been a whole 6 months at least of this lockdown. And again, that video I made on the 22nd of March for the 20,000 subscribers was the one where I first talked about the idea of, should I do live streams? It was a really rough start. I kind of struggled with the idea of live streams. I really wasn't experienced with it at all. I even did a few which I really wasn't happy with because of technical issues, and I deleted them from the channel, which in hindsight, I'm not sure if I should have done. It also was for other reasons. I wasn't sure if by nature of live stream, should I just let it be something that's online for a day or two and delete it just so it has that spontaneous aspect to it? Or should I leave it live on the channel? Should I leave it on the channel permanently or semi-permanently? I was sort of struggling with that decision because I wasn't sure, what would suit the channel best and you guys viewing. After feedback, a lot of people said that they would miss the live stream. They wanted to watch it later. So since the last 5 or so, I've been leaving them online, especially now that I've gotten used to the process and I've got a bit of a schedule happening where I do like a book sharing live stream on some weekends. And I've got like a lot of feedback on those. I personally enjoy them quite a lot, where I grab a photo book, share it, and have a camera view showing you some of the photography in that book. So if you missed last week's live stream, that was where I shared Alex Webb's Istanbul book, City of 100 Names. Amazing book. And if you haven't seen that, I definitely recommend going back and checking that out. So, hello, another Melbourneian in lockdown here. Melissa, thank you. Good to see. Yeah, I mean, if you're in lockdown, we've only got a couple of weeks left. It's not long now. Hopefully, if things go to plan, we're meant to be taking a significant step forward in terms of having that extra freedom. Behind each film game, hey Lang, how's it going, man? Finally caught up on your live videos. Yeah, it's the first time I've seen you hop online, so that's really cool. All right, one of the next things I wanted to announce. So first of all, again, thank you for the 25,000 subscribers. Anyone who's been supporting me and the channel and everything I've been putting out over this last 6 months during this somewhat difficult but productive period, I really appreciate it. I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for all the people giving feedback, coming online, watching the videos, and all that sort of stuff. So we're really appreciative of that. And I'm on a bit of a momentum right now and really enjoying the process, and looking forward to see where this all goes in the future. So the last video I put out, non-live stream video, was the In Conversation video that I put out last night. That was with Mark Forbes, who is a fellow Melbourne-based photographer whose work I've always admired, but I've especially admired the transition he's made in his work over the last year or two, whereby he has been putting out some amazing work, especially on film, or pretty much all on film, And I'm going to switch to a window here just to sort of give you guys an idea in case you're not familiar with his work or you haven't seen the stream I did with Mark last night. So I put that out last night if you're in Australian time, but this is Mark's Instagram page. And just so you have an idea of the kind of photography he does, I'm just scrolling through here so you can kind of get that vibe of the kind of work that he's been putting out that I really, admire and look forward to seeing every time he puts something new out. A great eye for color, for composition, especially shooting a lot of medium format lately, and just beautiful stuff. And I was looking forward to interviewing him for a while. Mark is someone who I have met in person. I know for a couple of years now at least, but we had been meaning to catch up for a while and just never really got the opportunity because of what's been happening this year. So I reached out and said, hey, let's do a video chat. Let's connect, go over the journey you've been taking on your photography, how you've sort of transitioned from one type of work to another. And it was really good to catch up. So it's kind of a podcast style video, but I just pick out some of these random images you're seeing here and talk to him about them and his process, which includes printing, for example, which I'm always happy to talk about. But yeah, I mean, looking at some of this work, it's really nice stuff. So next up, I had an appearance, I guess you would call it, not really an appearance, but I was on a podcast, on a brand new podcast by my friend Daniel Sig, who is based over in Minneapolis, St. Paul in America. And he had me guest write for his blog, which was about that Agfa Optima 100 expired film that I shot during the winter road trip. And we just kept in touch, and he reached out at one point and told me, hey, I'm actually starting a new podcast. Would you be interested in talking on one of my episodes? We can pick a topic, discuss that topic. And the podcast is called Create Photography. And his focus is to talk about the creative aspect of photography and some of that thought process behind it, meaning not as much focus on gear and whatnot, but I personally like that. So that's the podcast. I was on the third episode that you can see here, which was about how limitation can increase creativity, a subject that, if you may know, I'm actually quite interested in. I've made a whole video on YouTube called Liberation Through Limitation, and it's all about limiting ourselves with our photography, especially when it comes to gear, so that we can enhance our creative ability. So definitely worth checking that out. It's a fresh new photography podcast, and I just noticed here that there's a review from Ted Vieira. I'm pretty sure he actually did an episode with Daniel that is coming out in the future, maybe over the next couple of weeks. And I'm a huge fan of Ted Vieira's work, so I'm really looking forward to that. I feel honored to have been on this new project, on this podcast. So if you are into podcasts and you want something to add to your list, I've put the link for that in the description of this live stream. And this is the Apple Podcasts version. I'm on the Apple Podcasts homepage for the podcast, but he has it on Spotify, all that other stuff that you can get podcasts on, Google and whatnot. So just checking up some of the comments. Lang, you deserve congrats, friend. 25K is a mile marker for the very first time. I stumbled in channel with Nick. Thank you so much. His imagery is fantastic. Yeah, Mark's stuff is amazing. So if you are a fan, if you're already aware of his stuff, I'm sure you'd be interested. Even if you're not, check out his Instagram. I put some of Mark's information in the description. If I haven't, I'll add it later. But definitely check out that interview I did with him, which I've linked in the description for sure. Rod, love you sharing your knowledge with all of us. I like that you do collabs with other photographers. Miss your road trips, as I know you do. Definitely would like to watch the live videos later if I miss them. Yeah, cool. I mean, thank you for actually saying that. It just reaffirms to me that things like, yes, I should leave the live streams on, and that people are enjoying this content. And that's what I love about watching other people's content. When I go online and watch other YouTube photographers, I really love seeing them go out on road trips and just shooting and talking about their process. So thanks for that feedback. I really appreciate it. And in terms of collaborating with other photographers, that's something I love doing as well, whether it's having a chat with someone like Mark, which I did yesterday, or with Karen, which I did a couple of weeks ago. And if you haven't seen that, that's another really interesting chat I had with Karen Mayoka, who is a fellow photographer and YouTube content creator. And I've done quite a few of these conversation videos now, which I love. And that actually brings me to the next point, because a lot of these collaborations and chats I've been doing, including Mark, Karen, I did a chat with Jason from the Grainy Days channel. These are all really great fun, and it allows me to kind of reach out to an audience that is beyond my little closet of Melbourne, Australia here. And what I really miss doing, however, is some of those in-person interviews. So the last one would have been with JM Tabera. And that was a really fun interview because it had a lot of planning going into it. He's an amazing artist. And at the moment, it's become really hard to do anything like that. But I definitely look forward to doing more fleshed out interviews in a documentary sort of format, like I did with JM, with M. Jensen, and some other ones. And when all this ends, I'm really looking forward to bringing out more interviews like that because, yes, I do love collaborating with other people. I think that is something that you have to do as an artist in order to grow. If you want to grow yourself, you want to try and bring other people up, not try and, step ahead or bring other people down. I think by collaborating, you will enhance your own ability and power to grow in any field. It's really important. And I like bringing other people's work to light, especially if it's stuff that I admire. And that's what I tend to do. So yeah, looking forward to future interviews. All right, so in terms of the podcast, I've mentioned that. Another thing I want to mention is I've been doing a blog lately. I know written content is sort of dying off. Like even for myself, I don't really read blogs as much as I used to because I guess video and audio content is so streamlined and we're in a multitasking generation. I mean, that's just part of the zeitgeist right now. But I still read stuff occasionally. And if you are into reading content, I have been writing a blog and I will give you a quick look at the sort of stuff that I put out on that. It's on my personal website. And I wrote an article, for example, about limitation and my appearance on Daniel's podcast. Sometimes I just post sort of mini series. For example, I'll open this one up and I called it By the Waterside, where I just have this collection of work that I had noticed had this common motif of waterside settings. And it's just a little written piece, not too much words, and a gallery of images, which is all to do with, photos I've taken by the waterside, something I'm personally connected with. I have that sort of, sentimental connection with the beach and the ocean and marinas and lakes, rivers, all that sort of stuff. And I've just documented some of my experience by the waterside over the last 3 years maybe, and I put it up into a little article, even some travel stuff here overseas, Bangladesh. So if you are into this sort of stuff, check it out. I think it's a bit nicer sometimes to look at photography in a slightly larger format than just the little Instagram size. So yeah, I'll put a link to that in the description of the live stream as well. All right, let's switch to the next topic. All right, so I sold my scanner. I sold my Epson V800. It was actually a pretty hard decision because I was kind of battling the decision for a while because I've become more reliant on DSLR scanning of my film, digitizing film using my Canon 5D. And I just found that ever since I got the essential film holder, upgraded my LED light, I just wasn't finding as much use for the Epson V800 that I had, which is sad, I know, because it could have come in useful maybe in the future if I got into shooting 4x5, or if I needed it for something where I need like a lot of resolution on a large negative. But I figured that there's ways I can get around that with DSLR scanning. And the great thing about the essential film holder is it actually started to save me time. And I'm sure if you guys use any other method that allows you to scan an entire uncut roll of film in one go, that's going to save you a lot of time as opposed to loading up a flatbed with 3 strips at a time or 2 strips at a time and doing that multiple times, going back and forth. Once you have a streamlined DSLR scanning process, you're going to save time. So there's the efficiency factor. And I've always noticed that increase in quality, whether it's scanning black and white negative, slide, or color negative. I enjoy the results from DSLR scanning a lot more. Now with Negative Lab Pro version 2.2, the results are amazing. I'm going to show you some of the latest. So if you follow me on Instagram on my personal page here, you will probably notice that some of the photography I've been posting there lately has started to include these sort of black borders around the edges. Part of that is because these would be photos I've scanned on the essential film holder that actually kind of leaves a bit of that black natural border around the frame on the negative. And I quite like that. It's not as far as showing the words on the edge or the sprockets, but with that film holder, I've been getting great results. And this is a photo here, just an example to show you guys a portrait of Sarah, and she's learning how to do longboarding on a surf skate. And this was a shot taken on the Leica M4 with Kodak Vision 250D, processed in Unicolor C41, and just scanned in on my DSLR with Negative Lab Pro in the Essential film holder. So it's showing the whole frame there, as you can see. And the colors are amazing. The results I'm getting out of it are so good. And yeah, I just decided to sell the flatbed because I couldn't imagine myself using it often enough to justify it. And I'm actually hoping to put that money towards a future acquisition that I'm saving up for. I won't talk about it right now, but it might be a surprise sometime down the track, you know, quite a bit down the track, that I'm trying to save money for and just sell off things that I'm not using. The other bonus is that I freed up so much space on my desk by selling off the Epson, and it does take up a lot of room. It just always being there, especially if I'm not using it much. So yeah, I just thought that would be cool to mention. DSLR scanning has gotten to a point now where it can just give you great results and reliable workflow with good colors and save time. So I'm really enjoying that process. So Sean, thanks for your time today. Do you know if any Melbourne labs are open to post film for developing and scanning? I have 10 rolls of film to develop. I have heard some of them are allowed to process. There's a bit of a weird rule with labs not being considered essential services. So I know most of them seem to have closed. I have heard, like the lab I had been using most often in recent time was Halide Supply, because they were located right next to where I used to work. Now I've been processing all my own stuff. However, I saw on Instagram that they reopened for postal orders. Ikigai Film may be open for postal orders. If you are going to post stuff though, you can either consider just sending it to Sydney. I'll be sending some E6 film over to Rewind Lab in Sydney, who I've used before for color negative. But the great thing is they charge the same price for E6, and they have good rates. They have a loyalty card system. And another lab that I used to use for E6 is not processing right now, so I'll be needing to send it to Sydney. But yeah, I mean, Rod's just said that Ikigai is still open. I'm sure there's a few labs working by postal service in Melbourne right now, maybe even Vanbar. Yeah, so it's good that things are going to finally start to open up again. All right, so next thing I want to talk about is some of the latest book acquisitions. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been enjoying looking at photo books a lot during this lockdown period and buying photo books, which I know it can be a bit of an addiction, spending money on things like photo books. But the way I look at it is that they are a very worthy investment of my money and something that I will hopefully hold on to for a long time. So what I thought I'd do is share with you guys a couple of the latest photo books I've bought since the last stream I did, or the last couple of streams I did. So let's look at this one first. This one is called Maldicidade by Miguel Ria Branco. It's a big photo book, this one, so a lot of content in it. It has hundreds of pages, and they're very thin, almost magazine-like pages. This is going to be pretty hard to sort of show you guys, but I'll probably just do a future live stream talking about this book and some of the amazing work that's in there. Yeah, it's a bit hard to preview that, but I haven't completely looked through it either. But I hope to keep looking through this book, gather my thoughts on it, and present it in a future video or live stream. So that's a really good one. I was recommended that by a viewer, I think, because I had been talking about another photographer. I can't remember who recommended it to me, but thanks to you for recommending it if you are watching. I think someone messaged me. Another one that I just bought within the last week was this little mini book on Ernst Haas. It's by Thames and Hudson. So it's one of these little photo file series of books that was recommended also last week by Jen, who was on a video that I did on the live stream for Istanbul. And she is someone I follow on Instagram, and I think she messaged me and said you should really check out this book, which is a really affordable little photo book with some great work, some classic street photography from Ernst Haas. So that's a really nice one. I've looked about halfway through that, and yeah, then they're a nice little series. I think there's one on most of the well-known classic street photographers. Cool. All right, guys. So again, checking some of the comments. Do you DSLR scan 120 now? I do. Yeah. So some of those shots that I showed you earlier, these are 120. There's actually 220 film. Funny enough, it's an expired roll of Portra 160 NC 220, and these were done on my DSLR. And there is a bit of a light leak here, but you can see here that the quality is great. This is even just an Instagram screen, so you can imagine that the full resolution file shows a lot more detail, and this is all 120. That if it shows this border, it means I've scanned it with my DSLR because I've used the essential film holder, which allows you to capture the full frame, and this is all done on the DSLR. So is that shot. This one here would have been on the DSLR, so I've been using that for 120 and 35mm. So someone has ordered film from Ikigai. Yeah, cool. So it's good to see Ikigai still open for business. Sean, thanks for your feedback. Thanks, Rod. Cool, thank you. All right, so what I wanted to make the central topic of this live stream today was sort of just the idea of photography goals. So anyone watching, and don't be lazy. I know if you're here right now live, I want you to tell me what are your photography goals in terms of, not all of them, but even if it's just one photography goal, what is one thing that you're aspiring to reach in your photography? And it could be anything. It could be something minor. It could be a major milestone. For example, photographing a particular series, or maybe getting your work into an exhibition, or maybe it could be something like, I want to shoot a wedding, or yeah, let me know. Anyone watching, and even if you're listening, pull your phone out or get your hands onto the keyboard. Tell me what one of your photography goals are, because I know this is something that's hard to actually define for ourselves. So what I want to hope to do is prompt you guys to think about that. And maybe you haven't really put much thought into it, and that's fine. But if you do feel like it, like, hey, have a think about it. What do you want to reach? Even if it's a minor goal, like even if it's a camera you want to buy. So, all right, Brandon, to finish my first project with a book, instead of jumping from idea to idea without finishing. Yeah, for sure. So that's something I think a lot of us struggle with, is becoming a bit more cohesive with our work and focusing on certain things where we can actually grow in some sense. Rod, doing my first zine. Awesome. Yeah, definitely a good milestone to aspire to. Putting your work into something physical is something that's going to last for a long time, for yourself, for your friends, your family, to others if you end up selling it. And that is amazing, because things that are just out there digitally probably won't be as prominently available in 5 years, or as easy to share, as paradoxical as that seems. Steve, I want to be competent metering light. Be able to do that quickly once I settle on a composition. Yeah, and for that, I feel like it's an ongoing practice, ongoing journey, and it's just practice makes perfect. Just repeatedly do it. Try not to fall back on light meters too much. If you do use a light meter, have a guess first, check the light meter, and see how far off you were. And trust me, by doing that, you can learn something like Sunny 16 really quickly. And you can never be perfect, but you can get close to it. And you can get to the point where you can be so competent light metering that you only use the light meter for a final check. Unless the light is very difficult, or you need spot metering, that is something definitely worth doing. It's a goal I'm probably looking forward to as well. All right. I want to get better with picking good lighting. Yeah. Yep, that's something that's hard. It's what I find is worth doing is just sometimes just analyzing light, thinking about it, looking at it. Even if you're not photographing a scene, if you're sitting out in the backyard and you're just not doing anything else, pay attention to how the light is falling, to the way it's affecting colors and textures, and how it falls off, what the difference is between the light areas and the shadow areas. You know, even if it's something you're watching on TV in a movie, think about how light is being used in that film that you're watching. I think that's something that I enjoy doing as well. Staying with one camera system for at least 1 year straight. Yeah, Lang, I doubt that you could do that, man. You have a lot of cameras, and yeah, I don't know if even I would be able to do that, but it's a good goal. It's a good goal to aim for. I'm sure you'd get a lot better at using that one camera. But if you have an obsession with gear like I do, it's really hard. All right, Phantomized 818. Thanks for the channel. Keep all Melburnians sane. For me, rooftop photography. All right. Yeah, thanks, man. It's good to see a few other Melburnians here. And rooftop photography is something I've never really thought about. That's really cool. It's like a lot of people are getting into flying drones. I don't know if like that's related, but I really admire photography taken up from a high perspective. And yeah, I've never even thought about that, but that's a really cool goal. I'm very curious about what that entails, rooftop photography. Anthony, making my first print to hang on my wall. Oh, absolutely, man. If you haven't done that yet, that is, I think, a really good goal that you can aim for early on in your photography journey. If not, one of the very first things you should do is print some of your photos, even if they're just little 6x4s. And if you guys are here shooting film, you have that excuse also that if your lab offers prints, get a set of prints with your next roll that you drop off. Even if you don't, you're probably getting scans into a low-res JPEG, which is more than enough to print a little 6x4 and just lay them out, look, and they'll become more valuable over time as well. So definitely do print something and put on your wall if you do choose to do that. All right, so Alistair, my big goal is to finish my diploma photography. Big asking these times. All right, man, well, keep at it. Yeah, that's I did a bit of photography in my days of study, and it is something that you have to endure. Steve Miller, I'm always spot metering. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, spot metering, I mean, it's so accurate, and it should probably give you a good idea. But with spot metering, I find it's more difficult than looking at the light overall. And having a spot meter, I guess you can still use that practice of guessing first and then looking at the meter. Sebastian wants to get better at composition. Again, another good ongoing challenge. Jay, do you have any other Melburnian photographers that you like? So I guess that's based on the fact that I had the chat with Mark yesterday. And yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of Melburnian photographers or photographers from Melbourne that I admire. The problem is that there would be too many to list, and almost anyone who I've met in Melbourne whose work I follow, whether it's through Instagram or on their websites, I definitely admire. And funny enough, some of the photographers I like aren't even really active on Instagram. Their work is in exhibitions. I've got a friend or someone I used to work with named Nathan Stoltz, and he has some amazing work. And I saw his exhibition a couple of years ago, and I'm a huge fan of his work. He did a whole series on Morocco and even one on Williamsburg, New York. And his work is amazing, and he doesn't really put it out online. He puts his work more into exhibitions. And I think that's really great. And, you know, you may not be as aware of his stuff, I guess, but there's a lot of great photographers based here, and I'm sure all over the country, all over the world. Sean, congrats on the 25K. In terms of photography goals, I need to rethink my Instagram and have a consistent way of shooting, and also finish my zine, which I've been working on since the lockdown. Yeah, man, I know you've actually mentioned that zine to me, and I know how tough it is working on something like that, especially when it comes to laying it out digitally. Like, that part of it I find is not as fun as actually shooting the project, but just keep at it. And that's a good goal, definitely. Steve, I also want to be more proficient making notes about compositions I've seen while out and about. That way, once the light is right, I can remember to revisit those locations. Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if I have one here, but I have some notebooks that I use by, what are they called? Here it is. Photo Memo. I'm sure you guys have probably seen these or familiar with them. And it's from Shoot Film Co. Sorry, the name escaped me for a second. But these are really good, and I use them when there's a role that I need to remember things for. And you can just sort of write notes in them on your exposures or anything else to do with the scene, so that when you're looking back at that later, you have that visual notepad. And these are pretty cheap. Definitely great to support Mike's work as well. I think it's Mike from Shoot Film Co. I'm sorry if I'm getting his name wrong, but yeah, he does some great stuff. I've listened to some of his chats on podcasts like Analog Talk, and yeah, they come in packs of 2 or 3, and sometimes I think they come with a pencil, so really cool. I like these, but you can really use anything if you like, any notebook. But I like those photo memos from Shoot Film Co. Cool, guys. So it's good to hear that. I think it's inspiring to me to kind of hear what you guys are looking forward to doing. And even if you're someone watching this video post live stream, feel free to put something down in the comments. And this sort of stuff really gets me thinking about goals in photography, or even if it's in any other art pursuit or creative pursuit, because creativity is such a powerful thing that to me just makes me feel better when I can be creative. And when it comes to photography, if you're live still here now watching this later, it's worth having a think about your goals, even if there's little milestones. It doesn't need to be the be all end all of your photography journey, but it could just be some kind of stop along the journey or a milestone that you're looking forward to achieving. For example, for me, something that not a lot of people may know about me is I was born here in Australia, but my parents are from Lebanon. And Lebanon is a country that I have been wanting and almost sort of really itching to reconnect with and find out more about, because even though I have been there, it was only as a child. So most of my adult life, I've been wanting to go back, but it's a part of the world that, for one, it's quite far. It's expensive to go there, but it's politically sometimes unstable. But I find such an attachment with, that heritage from my family side of wanting to go there. And one of my photography goals, for example, is to go back and stay for a somewhat extended period of time, really reconnect with some of my parents' families and with the culture in general, find out more about it from the perspective of someone who's more of an outsider, I guess, than an insider, but has that bit of an inside connection. I can only speak a bit of the language, for example, and would still feel foreign being there. But I think it would be a really interesting project, I guess, in terms of photography, if I choose to do that. And it's something that I can imagine I would, of course, document it through photography so I can look back on, because when I went there as a kid, it was such a long time ago that I don't remember it. If I go there as an adult and I take a lot of photos, of course, I'm going to have the ability to remember it. And I think that's, for example, one really interesting thing that I aspire to do in my photography, in and amongst a lot of other things. I love travel. I would love to travel to a lot of other countries around the world, document them through photography. But I think that's one example of something that I'd be looking forward to and that I would call a photography goal. All right. Brandon, do you feel that developing and scanning film is cheaper in the long run than sending to a lab? That's an interesting question, because if you consider the amount of time you spend doing it, it may not really be cheaper. But if you don't mind spending the time, it is sort of technically cheaper, at least with black and white. Black and white chemistry tends to last for a long time on the shelf. It is cheaper to buy, and it would definitely be cheaper developing your own black and white, since some labs even charge more. However, when it comes to color, that's where I'm not sure. I feel like with color, it's maybe a little bit cheaper developing your own, but it tends to take a bit longer because you have to warm up the chemicals. It's not harder necessarily, but I find color developing more annoying because of that temperature aspect. So, and then the C41 kits that I use are the unicolor ones. They come in 2-liter kits. The price isn't great, like it's good, but it's not great. And if I use a lab like Halide Supply and they charge $10 or $12 a roll to develop and scan high res, even if I'm only using those scans as proofs and I choose to rescan a frame later for a big print, I'm saving a lot of time, and the money's probably not far off. It's a little bit more, obviously, but yeah, the time is a big factor. So if you choose to get into developing all your own color film, I wouldn't do it for the reason that it's going to save you a lot of money. I've been doing it lately out of necessity because I can't get to a lab because of lockdown, and because I've been shooting vision film, so I can remove the remjet, process it at home. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question to some degree. Robert, reconnect Lebanese food. Yeah, man, I love that. That's good. Sebastian, what Lightbed do you use for your DSLR scanning? I got some weird color grain noise, and I'm guessing it's from the cheap Lightbed. Yeah, okay. So the one I use is, I think it's a brand called Viltrox. I hope I'm not getting it wrong. I've got it here somewhere. But yeah, it's called the L61 something T. I've got a video on the Essential Film Holder where I demonstrated the latest light pad that I was using, and I even compared it to some others, because I have another one called Falcon Eyes. I have the old Logan light pad that I used to use, and I did a comparison between the colors you get from all of them. One thing I would advise is stay away from the LED lights that have really prominent orange and white LED bulbs in them that are very visible. Some of the light pads will have a built-in diffuser, so they have a really soft output. You might notice a little bit of the dots behind them, but you don't want them to be really prominent. If you're using something like the Essential Film Holder, it probably won't matter too much because it has a really strong diffusing panel, but you want the light to be as diffuse as possible, which sometimes means moving it further away from the negative. So you don't want it right up against the negative. You want that distance from the negative so that you don't see those dots of LED lights, especially if they jump between warm and cool LEDs. But yeah, I'll put in a link to that video, or maybe I'll just type it in, just the Viltrox that I use. It is in the Essential Film Holder review, so check that out. Okay. Brandon, thanks for the input. Also amazing Gold with Lebanon. Will be very interesting to see that work in the future. Yeah, man, like one day down the track. It could be, especially now, I can't travel anywhere, let alone in Australia to my hometown of Perth. So, but that would be really cool one day. If I'm still doing a YouTube channel in a year or two, maybe look out for that. All right. Do you have any idea what effect this lockdown is having on the independent labs in Melbourne? Given that they are small businesses, I worry it's going to devastate some of them. That's a good concern. It's a concern I had because I think small business in general is struggling right now, especially really independent ones where it's just a few dudes running a business that they're passionate about. Like, you know, Brock over at Work in Process, he hasn't been able to operate. How they're coping with it, I'm not too sure. Like in terms of Brock, for example, he does really great work and he has been still receiving film for postal orders. He just can't process it. In terms of Melbourne, I feel like the government is giving out some kind of support to small businesses that aren't allowed to operate in terms of money grants or something like that, subsidy of rent. So hopefully I would like to think that some of those small businesses that are closed because they're not allowed to operate are getting some kind of support from the government. And we are really lucky here in Melbourne that, for example, we have that here in Australia. There might be countries that don't have that. Small businesses might be shutting down left, right, and center. Even here, I know that some businesses have shut down. They haven't been able to survive this amazing amount of restriction that's been put upon them. So it's quite concerning. I hope the best for anyone operating a small business because I know what it's like as a sole trader, as a freelance photographer. I haven't been able to work for a long time. I can't even get a permit to do jobs. I can't even shoot little weddings, like 5 people elopements. So it's pretty, difficult, but we'll get through it. All right, Jay, on the Viltrox, to use an AC adapter or use the battery? I use the battery because, number one, I can't be bothered plugging in an AC adapter all the time, even though I have one that works for it. And secondly, by plugging in the battery, it makes the light sit flat on the table because the battery's flat and it just sits there and it gives me more freedom in moving it around. So I like the battery aspect. I used to use the AC plug with my Logan light pad, and that's probably fine, especially if your light pad is flat on the bottom. But the Viltrox I have has the little, control knobs, so it wouldn't sit perfectly flat unless I clip the battery in. So that's why I do that. Well, the main reason. Robert, I saw your girlfriend riding a cruiser board when the lockdown eases. I run a longboard skate community in the city. That's awesome, man. That's really cool. She, yeah. And if you joined the stream earlier, I love skateboarding. I'm not good at it in the, sense of doing tricks or at it, but I like commuting around on a skateboard, just riding around. I can't do kick flips and whatever, but skateboarding's fun. It's really good exercise too. I like surfing and snowboarding, so it all goes hand in hand. And if you saw that photo earlier of her holding the longboard, yeah, this one's a surf skate. So it has that kind of, I'll bring it up so you guys can see. It has that tail. It's got like a fish shape, kind of like a shortboard on surfing, and it allows you to really carve, and I rode it. It's amazing fun. So the board I have is just a shortboard, a normal skateboard. But yeah, if anyone is into skateboarding, try out a surf skate. They're great fun. It's a type of longboard and it lets you carve. It's really fun. And yeah, she's been looking for places once we reopen here in Melbourne to go and practice surf skating, and like pump tracks, for example, with the little hills. So yeah, thanks, Robert. If you actually know any good pump tracks, she looked up a few, and I think there's one in Dramana, but just checking your comments now. Sunset skate session. All right, dude. Yeah, I'll actually check that out. I'll note it down and I'll tell her about it because who knows? I might end up getting one. They're so much fun. But sorry for the tangent. Yeah, how is street photography different in Australia versus the US? I haven't been to the US from Prime Studios, that question. So I wouldn't really be able to comment on that. I know there's probably some differences, but even within the US, street photography be very different from state to state because they're such a diverse country in terms of all the states. Jay, okay, great. I was just wondering if the battery made it flat. Yes, so that's a good question. I do use those Sony NPH batteries. I have the thin one and the larger one. They both sit flat and they give it extra weight, which helps it stay stable. So I do like using that Viltrox with the battery. And I find that the output's really great. When you turn it up to 100%, it's super powerful. It lets you use a faster shutter speed when you're digitizing. So that's why I recommended that light. I'm sure there's probably others that are just as good, if not better, but that's the one that I got. It was a good price on Amazon and I've been having good success with it. All right, guys. Yeah, I think I'm going to sum things up pretty soon. If anyone else wants to sort of comment on that idea of photography goals, again, feel free to let me know what's something you've been aiming for. Maybe you've been listening and you kind of use that time and hearing everyone else's goals to process what you are aspiring to do with your photography. So feel free to let me know before we sum things up here. All right. Sorry, guys. Just making sure I can see everything correctly. Cool. So, checking my notes, I think I've gone over everything that I wanted to go over. And just while I wait for any last questions or comments, I'll change the view back to my main view here. And from Wilson, what do you personally meter for when shooting portraits? So I will generally meter for the shadowy areas. So not like the extreme blacks or shadows, but for the shadows in the scene. So I can probably just show you quickly by switching back to that photo of Sarah, which really demonstrates that. So what I would have been doing here, even though I wasn't using a light meter, because on the M4 there's no light meter, but if I was metering for the sunny parts back there, that would have been a certain setting, but she's standing in the shade. So I'm metering more for this side on the right rather than the sun on the left. And Kodak Vision can really handle that quite easily. The highlights don't blow out, and pretty much any color negative film will have that same effect. I also shot this photo on slide film on E100, but I metered it quite differently. So if you're shooting negative, definitely with your portraits, meter for the shadows. If you have a handheld light meter, you would hold it sort of here and point it towards yourself, maybe a little bit down. Because if you hold it over the face here where the sun's hitting, you would have these shadows go very black and you wouldn't get as much nice soft color as you do with this shot. My goal at the moment is to make a skate zine. That's cool, man. Yeah, so I guess if you're in that skate industry and longboarding, that'd be a good project to work on. I'd be keen to see that. Rod, I want to learn little tips like shooting portrait 400 to 200, Tri-X push to 1600. Yeah, those are great things to start off with when you start experimenting with film, pushing your black and white, overexposing color negative. It's something that almost everyone recommends, and it's for a reason, because it can get great results. You should organize a photo walk after lockdown. Yes, that's, sorry if that's, I'm clipping on the microphone. I definitely want to do that, guys. And if you followed what I was up to before the start of 2020, I had just started doing photo walks, workshops, all that stuff. And we had a great photo walk in late December 2019, summer photo walk. I was meant to do an autumn themed one and a winter one, spring, which is right now. But we can't do it. But yeah, as soon as lockdown ends and we're allowed to do photo walks, I know that some people on the Discord channel have been chatting about it. So I might even collaborate with anyone else who's keen on doing a Melbourne photo walk. Definitely. Brandon, I saw your Discord channel on Instagram, but cannot find the link. Oh, sorry, dude. Yeah, I don't know if maybe the link died, but if you're in this video, in the actual description of this video, I've put the link to the Discord channel. I'll check it after I end the stream to make sure the link is still working. Maybe they expire, but yeah, thanks for letting me know. I'll check the link tree in Instagram to see if that is still working. So if you're watching and you're curious what we're talking about, I did start a Discord server for Pushing Film. It's sort of like a chat forum type application for phone and PC and whatever, where I've started a server with multiple categories within that server where people can chat, help each other out with technical issues, dump photos, just have conversations. So check out the link in the description. If it doesn't work for you, check back later and I would have fixed it. So do check that out. No worries, Brandon. Yeah, definitely photo walk. Melbourne. I'm itching for it. It's going to be good. Wilson, do a photo walk in New York City one day. That'd be amazing, dude. Like, I've never been to New York. I've never been to America. And I know that there's so many great photographers that I'd love to meet up with over there, whether I've discovered them through YouTube or otherwise. And New York is somewhere I would definitely love to visit. So who knows, maybe one day. Yeah, guys, that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over. The stream's been going for almost an hour now, so thanks if you've stuck it out throughout all this. A couple of last things I guess I was going to mention is that, thank you again to anyone who's been watching here on YouTube, supporting the channel, subscribing, supporting, and especially if anyone, I have sold a couple of prints recently, so just jumping back to my website here, I have a few, the prints that I've been selling the most, not a whole heap, but I've sold a few, are these black and white limited edition bamboo prints, which unlike some of the other prints I didn't make at home, but they've been commissioned to a professional printing place that I had made on Hahnemuller bamboo paper, which is really beautiful. It's shots, black and white shots from the photo drive I did with Phil in winter, and I'm selling them in 8x10 paper size. And I still have some of these left. They're limited edition prints that once I run out of, I won't be able to print them, at least not in this really great format and paper once again. And yeah, I still have some of those on my website. So if you are interested in buying a print, that would be an amazing way of supporting me while I'm stuck here at home. And thank you to anyone who has bought prints. If you are watching, I have had some sent to US, to Germany. So that's really cool. And I bought a new pen. Where is it? I was going to show you guys. It's somewhat boring news, but damn it, I can't find it right now. But yeah, it's a cool little compact pen that I was going to show you. But anyway, I'm going to tie things up there. Thank you again for everyone who's been supporting, for coming online, watching. Have a think about your photography goals. Let me know in the comments if you're watching this post-stream. And yeah, I'm going to check out that skate thing. Robert, thanks for joining today. And anyone in Melbourne, anyone worldwide, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday or your evening if you're overseas. And yeah, I think I'll end things there. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one.